Okay, so last week we were reading from Krishnamurti and we were looking at what he had to say about meditation. And I thought tonight I would continue with this. And tonight I'm going to be reading from a book of his. Oh, it's hard to see. It's called Meditations. And on each page, he's got a paragraph, a small paragraph of his major thinking about meditation. So let me begin. And at any point that you have a question or a comment, please just unmute yourself and speak up. Okay. So now this is how he begins here. A meditative mind is silent. It is not the silence which thought can conceive of. It is not the silence of a still evening. It is the silence when thought, with all its images, its words and perceptions, has entirely ceased. This meditative mind is the religious mind, the religion that is not touched by the church, the temples, or by chance. The religious mind is the explosion of love. It is this love that knows no separation. To it, far is near. It is not the one or the many, but rather that state of love in which all division ceases. Like beauty, it is not of the measure of words. From this silence alone, the meditative mind acts. Meditation is one of the greatest arts in life, perhaps the greatest, and one cannot possibly learn it from anybody. That is the beauty of it. It has no technique and therefore no authority. When you learn about yourself, watch yourself. Watch the way you walk, how you eat, what you say, the gossip, the hate, the jealousy. If you are aware of all that in yourself without any choice, that is part of meditation. So meditation can take place when you are sitting in a bus or walking in the woods full of light and shadows, or listening to the singing of birds, or looking at the face of your wife or child. Silence and spaciousness go together. The immensity of silence is the immensity of the mind in which a center, a me, does not exist. Meditation is hard work. It demands the highest form of discipline, not conformity, not imitation, not obedience, but a discipline which comes through constant awareness, not only of the things about you outwardly, but also inwardly. So meditation is not an activity of isolation, but is action in everyday life, which demands cooperation, sensitivity, and intelligence. Without laying the foundation of a righteous life, meditation becomes an escape and therefore has no value whatsoever. A righteous life is not the following of social morality, but the freedom from envy, greed, and the search for power, which all breed enmity. The freedom from these do not come through the activity of will, but by being aware of them through self-knowing. Without knowing the activities of the self, the me, meditation becomes sensuous excitement and therefore of very little significance.
Evie, could you go back for a second, read the second one?
The second one?
Yeah, the second one you read.
Oh, meditation is one of the greatest arts in life, perhaps the greatest. And one cannot possibly learn it from anybody. That is the beauty of it. It has no technique and therefore no authority. When you learn about yourself, watch yourself. Watch the way you walk, how you eat, what you say, the gossip, the hate, the jealousy. If you are aware of all that in yourself without any choice, that is part of meditation. So meditation can take place when you're sitting in a bus or walking in the woods full of light and shadows, or listening to the singing of birds, or looking at the face of your wife or child. Always to seek for wider, deeper, transcendental experiences is a form of escape from the actual reality of what is, which is ourselves, our own conditioned mind, a mind that is awake, intelligent, free. Why should it need? Why should it have any experience at all? Light is light. It does not ask for more light. Meditation is not something different from daily life. Do not go off into the corner of a room and meditate for 10 minutes and then come out of it and be a butcher, both metaphorically and actually. Meditation is one of the most serious things. You can do it all day, in the office, with the family, when you say to somebody, I love you, when you are considering your children. Oh, but then you educate them to become soldiers, to kill, to be nationalized, to worship the flag, educating them to enter into this trap of the modern world. Watching all that, realizing your part in it, all that is part of meditation. And when you so meditate, you will find in it an extraordinary beauty. You will act rightly at every moment. And if you do not act rightly at a given moment, it doesn't matter. You will pick it up again. You will not waste time in regret. Meditation is part of life, not something different from life. If you set out to meditate, it will not be meditation. If you set out to be good, goodness will never flower. If you cultivate humility, it ceases to be. Meditation is the breeze that comes in when you leave the window open. But if you deliberately keep it open, deliberately invite it to come, it will never appear. Happiness and pleasure you can buy in any market at a price. But bliss you cannot buy, either for yourself or for another. Happiness and pleasure are time binding. Only in total freedom does bliss exist. Pleasure, like happiness, you can seek and find in many ways, but they come and go. Bliss, that strange sense of joy, has no motive. You cannot possibly seek it. Once it is there, depending on the quality of your mind, it remains timeless, causeless, a thing that is not measurable by time. Meditation is not the pursuit of pleasure or the search for happiness. Meditation, on the contrary, is a state of mind in which there is no concept or formula, and therefore total freedom. It is only to such a mind that this bliss comes, unsought and uninvited. Once it is there, though you may live in the world with all its noise, pleasure, and brutality, they will not touch that mind. Once it is there, conflict has ceased. But the ending of conflict is not necessarily the total freedom. Meditation is the movement of the mind in this freedom, in this explosion of bliss. The eyes are made innocent, and love is then benediction. Yes, did you want to say something?
Well, it's, I'm just struck by the repetitive theme that keeps echoing in the background, that that we're all potentially the beneficiary of this wonderful pure innocence, this bliss, this unadulterated love, if we can just get a tranquil, quiet mind. It's like this treasure that awaits, this deep, deep happiness and beatitude almost that is your rightful heritage. If you could only stop wandering away from it by following one thought after another mindlessly. Anyone else have did anyone else have a chord struck?
Yeah, I kind of did. Of course, I got to get into the act, right? But can't help it. I mean, it's sort of what it is for me. It's like a summing up of that. This meditation at its core, its of understanding, is really getting to know the I, and getting to know how the mind creates that I. And the outcome of that is the thinking. And that meditation really is at some point, you get to the point where you're not thinking. And so what I see is like this whole ball of meditation. It's not going to get something, it's learning how to give things away and take things away. You find out about yourself and you let go of this and you let go of that. And finally you're left to the point where there's nothing left to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've not experienced it, but I can see it. I haven't experienced, but I can see it. And it's beautiful. I mean, that's what the whole non-duality is all about. That I guess meditation is when you're with your awareness, when you are the awareness. And there is that, you know, that observe doesn't work anymore, or isn't operating at that time. So when that stops operating, then you're in that what he calls state of bliss.
Right.
And boy, it's that powerful. I mean, that's.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, and negating and letting go is such a crucial part of coming closer to that bliss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting when he says, silence is spaciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And to see if one can be that.
Yeah, because when you're not silent, you're referring to your center. The noise comes from your center.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so, yeah, I you know, they talk about space and so on and so forth, and timelessness, and that's what it is. I guess once the brain disengages from the act of thinking, from the act of running everything through that sensor, that me, that center,
Right.
once that activity stops, then there's something else that happens.
Yes. Yes, that's what he's clearly saying here.
I'm very patiently waiting.
But he said,
I know.
you've got, right?
Can't do that.
No, because then you're wanting something.
Yeah,
Remember?
and that's where you got to use the awareness to see that that's happening.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I like what Paul called it. Was it unmined treasure? Was that what you said?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes, something like that.
It sounded good. It's like, oh, because it made it sound like, you know, worth giving up all that
Yes.
thinking.
Yes.
Like, who wouldn't want that?
Right.
That peaceful mind that's
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That peaceful mind, with that peaceful mind, suffering, psychological suffering ends.
sounds great.
So this is what else he has to say. I don't know if you have ever noticed that when you give total attention, there is complete silence. And in that attention, there is no frontier. There is no center as the me who is aware or attentive. That attention, that silence is a state of meditation. We hardly ever listen to the sound of a dog's bark, or to the cry of a child, or the laughter of a man as he passes by. We separate ourselves from everything. And then from this isolation, look and listen to all things. It is this separation that is so destructive, for in that lies all the conflict and confusion. If you listened to the sound of those bells with complete silence, you would be riding on it, or rather, the sound would carry you across the valley and over the hill. The beauty of it is felt only when you and the sound are not separate. When you are part of it, meditation is the ending of the separation, not by any action of will or desire. Meditation is not a separate thing from life. It is the very essence of life, the very essence of daily living. To listen to those bells, to hear the laughter of that peasant as he walks by with his wife, to listen to the sound of the bell on the bicycle of the little girl as she passes by. It is the whole of life, and not just a fragment of it, that meditation opens. We have to alter the structure of our society. Its injustice, its appalling morality, the divisions it has created between man and man, the wars, the utter lack of affection and love that is destroying the world. If your meditation is only a personal matter, a thing which you personally enjoy, then it is not meditation. Meditation implies a complete, radical change of the mind and the heart. This is only possible when there is this extraordinary sense of inward silence. And that alone brings about the religious mind. That mind knows what is sacred. Meditation is the flowering of understanding. Understanding is not within the borders of time. Time never brings understanding. Understanding is not a gradual process to be gathered little by little with care and patience. Understanding is now or never. It is a destructive flash, not a tame affair. It is this shattering that one is afraid of, and so one avoids it. Knowingly or unknowingly, understanding may alter the course of one's life, the way of thought and action. It may be pleasant or not, but understanding is a danger to all relationship. But without understanding, sorrow will continue. Sorrow ends only through self-knowing, the awareness of every thought and feeling, every movement of the conscious and that which is hidden. Meditation is the understanding of consciousness, the hidden and the open, and of the movement that lies beyond all thought and feeling. I'm going to repeat that. Meditation is the understanding of consciousness, the hidden and the open, and of the movement that lies beyond all thought and feeling. I think Krishnamurti seems to be saying that we live in time, right? I mean, that's where we live. We're either in the past or we're projecting into the future. He keeps saying the ending of time is the ending of the me, because the me is time. The me is what's living in either the past or the future, dwelling on the past or projecting fears into the future. So when he says that the ending of time is the ending of me, and there is a silence that not appears, that is there. There's a different movement then. It's not the movement of thought anymore, because thought has ceased. There's a different movement, a movement into what he calls the unnameable, what some people may call God or the absolute.
Well, when I'm fully immersed in the present, there is no me. When I'm lost in a task, or lost listening to music, or lost in art or writing, or any endeavor in which I'm completely absorbed in the present moment, there's a lack of self-consciousness, a lack of me, which is why we like to pursue such activities. They feel freeing. When I'm lost in painting or writing or fishing or building a project, it's unself-conscious, free time. And so, yes, the me appears when I look back psychologically or look ahead psychologically.
Right.
So, so in that sense, the me is time.
Yes.
And in the present is timeless because there's no me.
Right. When you meditate in solitude, it must be solitude. You must be completely alone, not following a system, a method, repeating words, pursuing a thought, or shaping a thought according to your desire. This solitude comes when the mind is freed from thought, when there are influences of desire or of things that the mind is pursuing, either in the future or in the past. There is no solitude. Only in the immensity of the present, this aloneness comes. And then, in quiet secrecy, in which all communication has come to an end, in which there is no observer with his anxieties, with his stupid appetites and problems, only then, in that quiet aloneness, meditation becomes something that cannot be put into words. Then meditation is an eternal movement. I don't know if you have ever meditated, if you have ever been alone by yourself, far away from everything, from every person, from every thought and pursuit. If you have ever been completely alone, not isolated, not withdrawn into some fanciful dream or vision, but far away, so that in yourself there is nothing recognizable, nothing that you touch by thought or feeling, so far away that in this full solitude, the very silence becomes the only flower, the only light, and the timeless quality that is not measurable by thought. Only in such meditation, love has its being. Don't bother to express it. It will express itself. Don't use it. Don't try to put it into action. It will act. And when it acts, in that action will be no regret, no contradiction, none of the misery and travail of man. So meditate alone, get lost, and don't try to remember where you have been. If you try to remember it, then it will be something that is dead. And if you hold on to the memory of it, then you will never be alone again. So meditate in that endless solitude, in the beauty of that love, in that innocency, in the new. Then there is the bliss that is imperishable. So how beautifully he puts this. So the solitude is really the emptiness, when the mind is empty, freed from, as he says, all the anxieties, the fears, all those thoughts, totally free. And he says, don't try to remember where you've been. If you try to remember, then it'll be something dead. Why? Because it's a memory. So it's not alive. And if you hold on to that memory, then you will never be alone again. Why? Because then the mind is going on again, and the thoughts are recreating that memory or that experience. And so then again, there's no solitude, there's no emptiness. So meditate in that endless solitude, in the beauty of that love, in that innocency, innocence, in the new. Then there is the bliss that is imperishable. In the new, right?
So what I hear being said is that you're meditating when the self is not.
Right.
And without the self, that's the emptiness.
Right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Beautiful.
That's
Interesting. I was thinking about like conversation, that so much of conversation is about the past or about, plans for the future. And sometimes I'm with someone like taking a walk or something, and we're just like commenting on the trees and the sky, and like it's so refreshing to just be in the moment.
Right.
right. That's right.
And it can be such a habit, and just like talking about what happened or what we did like 10 years ago, or what,
Yes.
this story and that story, which can be fun too, but
Yes.
it's nice to just be in the
Yes.
moment.
That's right. That's right. So, okay, you can have fun. So maybe telling stories or recalling stories is fun. However, if one wants, I don't even know if wants a peaceful mind, then when you're telling that story in a peaceful mind, the story appears and then it goes. And it doesn't linger. It doesn't last. You don't walk away having recalled this conversation with a friend of something that happened in the past and then keep dwelling on it and going over and over on it, about it in your mind. It's like an entertainment.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, I've been in social situations where someone is just talks all night about stuff from the past and loses everyone, but they're not even aware. They're kind of reliving. But sometimes you're with someone who's telling stories, but they're also very present and very aware of everyone that they're telling it to.
Right.
So it's much more engaging, and it's interesting. I've observed that. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
it's, when somebody's just like going over and over old stories, and it can get very boring. But some people can just like keep it in the present, even though they're talking about the past. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a hard distinction, but
It
I
is sometimes.
I see what you're saying. It's maybe it's in the telling. There's less self-identification in one form than there is in the other, or less self-investment.
Right. Or even though they're talking about the past, they're very much in the present with the people in the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well. I guess we all know people who, when you speak to them, because of just what you said, Rogine, every reference seems to be always about the past or talking about the past, and you get the sense that they're fixated in time, that they're stuck, in high school or stuck in their after high school years, and they haven't really their sense of self is still back there. Rather than when somebody tells a story in the present and they're not so invested in it, they're like telling it as an offering for everybody to have a laugh about, rather than as a testament to my being. I don't know.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Right. Or to engage with the people, as you said.
Right.
I think what's important is the meditation in that, which I think Kay would say is the awareness, as you put it, of the person not engaging, not reading his audience, not engaging with the people, but also what our reaction is to what's going on. Right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you become aware of annoyance or irritation or whatever the feelings that come up, so that you get an awareness of the whole picture of what's going on. I think it's important that we don't lose what's going on inwardly in us as well as what's going on outwardly.
Right. Yeah. Because that's happening now.
Yes, that's right. It's all in that now. Exactly. Yes. Okay. Oh dear, wait. Here it is. Meditation is not the mere control of body and thought, nor is it a system of breathing in and out. The body must be still, healthy, and without strain. Sensitivity of feeling must be sharpened and sustained. And the mind, with all its chattering and disturbances and gropings, must come to an end. It is not the organism that one must begin with, but rather it is the mind with its opinions and prejudices and self-interest that must be seen to. When the mind is healthy, vital, and vigorous, then feeling will be heightened and will be extremely sensitive. Then the body, with its own natural intelligence, which hasn't been spoiled by habit and taste, will function as it should. So one must begin with the mind and not with the body. The mind being thought and the varieties of expressions of thought. Mere concentration makes thought narrow, limited, and brittle. But concentration comes as a natural thing when there is an awareness of the ways of thought. This awareness does not come from the thinker, the me, who chooses and discards, who holds on to and rejects. This awareness is without choice and is both the outer and the inner. It is an interflow between the two. So the division between the outer and the inner comes to an end. Thought destroys feeling, feeling being love. Thought can offer only pleasure. And in the pursuit of pleasure, love is pushed aside. It was really a marvelous river, wide, deep, with so many cities on its banks, so carelessly free, and yet never abandoning itself. All life was there upon its banks, green fields, forests, solitary houses, death, love, and destruction. There were long, wide bridges over it, graceful and well used. Other streams and rivers joined it, but she was the mother of all rivers, the little ones and the big ones. She was always full, ever purifying herself. And of an evening, it was a blessing to watch her with deepening color in the clouds and her waters golden. But the little trickle so far away amongst those gigantic rocks, which seemed so concentrated in producing it, was the beginning of life, and its ending was beyond its banks and the seas. Meditation was like that river, only it had no beginning and no ending. It began and its ending was its beginning. There was no cause, and its movement was its renewal. It was always new. It never gathered to become old. It never got sullied, for it had no roots in time. It is good to meditate, not forcing it, not making any effort, beginning with a trickle and going beyond time and space, where thought and feeling cannot enter, where experience is not.
Beautiful.
Right? In the space which thought creates around itself, there is no love. This space divides man from man, and in it is all the becoming, the battle of life, the agony and fear. Meditation is the ending of this space, the ending of the me. Then relationship has quite a different meaning. For in that space, which is not made by thought, the other does not exist, for you do not exist. Meditation then is not the pursuit of some vision, however sanctified by tradition. Rather, it is the endless space where thought cannot enter. To us, the little space made up by thought around itself, which is the me, is extremely important. For this is all the mind knows, identifying itself with everything that is in that space. And the fear of not being is born in that space. But in meditation, when this is understood, the mind can enter into a dimension of space where action is inaction. We do not know what love is, for in the space made by thought around itself as the me, love is the conflict of the me and the not me. This conflict, this torture is not love. Thought is the very denial of love, and it cannot enter into that space where the me is not. In that space is the benediction which man seeks and cannot find. He seeks it within the frontiers of thought, and thought destroys the ecstasy of this benediction. So I don't know, I have some more, but maybe we should stop here and
any reactions?
Any questions, any comments?
How did all this strike you?
This is Frank. I just wanted to say it seemed like it's odd. So I don't know if irony is the right word, but the idea that I arrange for meditation. You know, I kind of make it happen. You know, I seem to lead myself to do this thing, but at the same time, at the end of it, it seems like it's the very thing that needs to be rid of. It's the one thing that you need to get rid of. And so I'm never sure really who brings who to meditation. You know, am I bringing it, or is it something that's more fundamental than me? And I kind of like to leave that. When I get to that point, I said, I leave it go. I said, any kind of thought that you have at that point is just a me talking. So I figure I usually, whenever there's a voice in my meditation, I don't listen to it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
Something calls you to the meditation.
But remember what he was saying here, it's not separate from life. It's not separate from daily living. It's the awareness, the continual awareness of what's going on inside and outside. So that's why he said, you know, watching, or you might call it witnessing. He said, the way you talk, the way you walk. He said, the gossip, the hatred. So all this that comes up and the awareness of it. Choiceless, he said. And choiceless means without condemnation, without beating oneself up. It means a choiceless awareness of all that comes up. And then pulling the plug on it. Keep pulling the plug on it as it appears. Or, as Krishnamurti would say, and of course he says it much better, the seeing is the doing. So when there is an immediate seeing of those feelings of fear, of those feelings of hatred, of those feelings of envy, when there's an immediate seeing of it, choicelessly, it ends in that moment. Now, that's not to say it's not going to come again, but each time it appears, in the choiceless awareness of it, you've already somewhat separated from it. Otherwise, you wouldn't know it was there. And that's a constant meditation. And that's like cleaning out the closet and making room. So, does it call you? Do you call it? Now, that's not to say if one finds it useful and helpful to sit and meditate a few times a day, so do it. Why not? But it's not the meditation that Krishnamurti's talking about. And I think the meditation Krishnamurti is talking about is almost the practice, the daily practice.
I kind of find that, my experience has been that way, that when I had been sitting down to do the meditation, that was a conditioning that I inherited from starting on the road to finding out what Buddhism was, going to Buddhism meetings, and they do the 20 minutes of meditation, and you do this and you do that. But there was a point at which, as I got into this non-duality thing, and I started to read some of the teachings of Krishnamurti here, is that I really became aware is that, it was the me that was getting me to sit down to meditate. And that the me was conducting that 20 minutes. And I was silent, but I found in many instances the struggle to try to remain silent, to try to get the thoughts out until they say, look at the thoughts, let them go. Who's doing all of this? So at some point, what I started to do was that just you get up in the morning and something happens, you get a feeling, you see, I became aware and I started to observe the thought coming up, and the thought produced the feeling.
Yes.
And that I really hung on to that. And that's when I try to work with it. And I think that to me gets closer to what meditation is intended to do, is to find out about yourself. The whole process of meditating is finding self, not finding out about yourself.
Right.
So I very rarely sit down with an intention, with a direct intention to spend, whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and then go through a process of trying to empty out my mind and to be empty and to just sit there. And it's very difficult for me to, in that process, to let go of me doing it. I still sense that there's that me conducting this whole scenario.
Yes. So there's an awareness of the me conducting this whole scenario.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when that awareness is choiceless, when it's got no hook in it, when it's just pure choiceless awareness, then that is not the me.
Well, that's when you have to be aware of yourself stepping in, the I stepping in and censoring that
That's
thought.
that's
And if you're thinking, you're censoring. There's no way you're getting around it. I've come to the conclusion that in the psychological thing, whenever thought is engaged, there's censoring going on. It's a product of my conditioning, and it's not to be relied upon. That's where my problem is. That's where that I me my problem is. And that's where I am.
But Ugo, we have to make a distinction between when thought is engaged, ruminating about me, and when thought is engaged in measuring out a blueprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
There's a distinction about, nobody has a problem, nobody. I don't have a problem with 2 and 2 is 4,
Right.
or 4 and 4 is 8.
right.
I got a problem when I get irritated, when I get angry,
Right.
when I feel lonely, when I have these emotional feelings that I can't explain, and that I use all kinds of part of my conditioning to try to solve.
That's right.
And at this stage of my life, I'm figuring out that problem solving hasn't worked.
Right.
So,
Right. Well said.
Yeah.
When I meditate quite a lot in Zen groups, and the meditation, it's not really meant to be a real formalized kind of watch the breath at all times and so forth. It's an opportunity to experience the moment just as it is, and whether that's your aching knees or whether it's a car horn outside the front door or whatever, that is the opportunity to really sort of immerse yourself in that. And so I don't look at it as being a technique, which I think Krishnamurti wisely says, don't make it a technique. But for me, it's a different experience, whether I do it alone or in a group.
Yeah, I also find it helpful to sit and meditate because it's challenging. Like my ego just wants to jump up and do something.
Mhm.
So it is, maybe it's training, but it feels like it helps me to slow down and get into the moment.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of opportunity to observe my ego when I'm sitting.
Well, they're not.
When you're sitting.
I'm
Also
sorry.
let it go.
What?
Sitting is also a chance to let it go, to face those things and to let them go.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. These things are not mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Their sitting meditation has its place, and that doesn't mean that what he was talking about, the daily awareness, that doesn't necessarily stop.
Yeah.
Right? One can do it all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
Yes, one does it all. Just like in a relationship, when you're in a relationship with someone, you can know it's such a wonderful classroom for getting to know yourself, because you're in the moment with this other person and you really begin to see your reactions, your moods, your feelings, your clarity, your compassion or lack of it. You begin to see it in that moment if there's awareness. And that's really such a wonderful classroom, because it's life meeting life in the now moment. And that's knowing the what is that he always talks about in that moment. The what is of ourselves in that moment. And so that's why he said, you can do that riding a bus or walking in the woods or having a conversation. The awareness of what's going on outside yourself and inside yourself. With no forcing, no pressure, no condemnation, no criticism, because that's all the ego. Just pure, choiceless awareness. Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for
have a
doing
good
that.
week, everyone.
Great.
Have a good week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Stay
No,
well.
no,
Bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ravi.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Paul.
Paul.
Thank you, Evie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, dears.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, Karen. Bye,
Judy.
Rob.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Judy.
Bye.